My boyfriend broke up with me for the dumbest reason after I supported him for years, but he forgot the house is in my name, and now he's living in his car. Let me preface this by saying I've been with Finn for 6 years. 6 years of what I believed was love, loyalty, and definitely a whole lot of patience. And when I say patience, I mean I've been the one supporting him financially while he bounced between passion projects. There was the YouTube channel that never took off, despite him insisting he'd be bigger than PewDiePie. The NFT craze he swore he was ahead of the curve on. Spoiler, he wasn't. And his brief stint trying to make it big in crypto where he lost most of his savings. During all of this, I held us down. Mortgage, me. Utilities, me. Groceries, also me. Car payments, you guessed it, me. Finn was the dreamer, and I was, well, I guess I was the fool who kept believing in those dreams. Every time he'd come to me with a new idea, eyes bright with enthusiasm, I'd push down my doubts and support him. This time will be different, he'd say. And like an idiot, I believed him. Things started getting weird about 2 weeks ago. Finn began acting distant, spending more time than usual on his phone, and making these odd comments about needing space to grow and finding himself. I didn't think much of it at first. He tends to get philosophical when he's about to start another project, but then he started making these comments about the state of the house, which was new. He'd point out unwashed dishes or unfolded laundry with this weird, judgmental tone I'd never heard from him before. Then last week, he sat me down at our kitchen table after I got home from work. He had this serious look on his face that I'd only seen a few times before, usually when he was about to announce another failed venture. But what came out of his mouth made me question if I was living in some parallel universe. "I think we should break up," he said. "You don't do enough around the house." I actually laughed. I thought he was joking, but when he didn't crack a smile, I felt something inside me just shift. This man, who I've basically been mothering for 6 years, was accusing me of not contributing enough. When I asked him to clarify, because surely he wasn't serious, he doubled down. "You never clean up after yourself, and I feel like I do all the emotional labor around here. I'm always the one who has to point out when things need to be done. Let me paint you a picture. I work insane hours to keep us afloat while he's at home, brainstorming his next big move. Yes, sometimes I'm too tired to do the dishes right away or fold laundry immediately. Sometimes I leave my coffee mug on the counter or forget to put my shoes away. But you know what I do? Pay every single bill that keeps a roof over our heads and food in our fridge." Meanwhile, Finn's biggest contribution to our household has been reorganizing the bookshelf by genre 3 times and throwing out my perfectly good Tupperware because it didn't spark joy anymore. This is the same man who has a meltdown if the Wi-Fi goes out for more than 5 minutes. Guess who calls the provider every single time? Me. Every birthday, holiday, or weekend activity, planned by me. He won't even order takeout without asking for my input 3 times, and then still managing to get my order wrong. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. After his little breakup announcement, Finn started acting like the house was already his. He made this smug comment about how this will be a good reset for both of us, and suggested I could move back in with my mom or something. He even started talking about how he was going to turn the guest room into his office once I was gone, and how he might get a dog since there won't be anyone to complain about the hair anymore. That's when it hit me. He genuinely seemed to have forgotten, or maybe never realized, whose name is actually on the deed to this house. Hint, it's not his. Not even close. This house was my inheritance from my grandparents, and I'm the sole owner. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every utility bill, it's all in my name. I excused myself, went upstairs, and locked myself in our bedroom. I'm not going to argue with him or try to change his mind. No, I'm going to let him sit in his little delusion for as long as he wants. Let him think he's winning this breakup. Let him think I'm packing my bags and heading out the door. Because here's the thing, Finn has no idea what's coming. He has no clue that he's about to lose everything. And honestly, I can't wait to watch him realize just how badly he screwed up. First update. So I mentioned in my last post that my boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend now, Finn broke up with me out of nowhere, claiming I didn't do enough around the house. This, of course, was hilarious because I've been the one paying for literally everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, while he's been working on himself for the past 3 years. Oh, and let's not forget, I also cooked, cleaned, and did every chore that wasn't somehow attached to his beloved gaming setup. But here's the kicker. After the breakup, Finn acted like he owned the place. Literally. I think it took him all of 5 seconds to decide this house was his now. He didn't say it outright, but the way he carried himself made it obvious. He started lounging around like the king of a castle he hadn't even built, leaving messes everywhere and playing his games until 4 a.m. like nothing had changed. He even started telling me what I needed to pack up so I could leave in an orderly way. Meanwhile, I was just sitting there in shock, waiting to see how far this delusion would go. Spoiler, it went very far. About a week after the breakup, Finn told me he was having a friend over. This was during one of his moments where he barely looked at me, muttering something about how I needed to respect his space. Respect his space. In my house. Sure, buddy. I just nodded, thinking, okay, let's see who this friend is. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find a woman standing there with a bright smile and a bottle of wine. Her name was Mila, and let me tell you, she was perfectly nice, polite even, but it didn't take a detective to figure out this wasn't just a friend. The way she looked at Finn? They were very much together. Finn didn't even introduce us properly. He just breezed past me like I was the maid, giving Mila a little tour of the house. My house. And oh, did he sell it like he was some kind of real estate mogul? This is the living room. I've been thinking about getting a new couch in here. Something more modern, you know? This is the kitchen. I love the open layout. It's great for hosting. This is my office. It's where I do most of my work these days. I almost choked when he said that last one. Work? The man hasn't had a job since 2018. The office he was referring to is the spare bedroom I set up for him to maybe do some freelance projects. But it's mostly just where he plays Fortnite. Mila was eating it up, though. I could see her imagining herself living here, settling into a life of Pinterest-perfect bliss. Meanwhile, I was standing there in the kitchen, gripping my coffee mug so hard I thought it might crack. At this point, I had two options. Blow up and let them both know exactly how I felt, or play it cool and let Finn dig himself into a hole. I chose the second one. Honestly, I wanted to see how far he'd take this little charade. The entire evening, Finn acted like he'd already moved on and was just graciously allowing me to stay until I figured things out. He even had the nerve to pull me aside and say, "I think it's best if we start working on a timeline for when you'll be out." No rush, of course, but Mila and I need to start planning. Planning what? A housewarming party in my living room? I just smiled and said, "Oh, don't worry about me. I'm handling everything." You should have seen his face. So smug. He really thought he'd won. The next morning, I made my move. While Finn was still asleep, I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed. The locksmith was in and out in under an hour. I paid him, thanked him, and sat down with a cup of tea to wait. When Finn finally woke up and strolled into the kitchen like he owned the place, I casually told him, "By the way, I had the locks changed this morning. You'll need to grab your things and leave by the end of the day." You guys. The panic on his face. He went pale. "What do you mean you changed the locks? You can't do that." "Oh, I absolutely can. This is my house, remember? It's in my name. You're not on the deed. You're not on the mortgage, and now you're not welcome here." He tried to argue. He tried to plead. At one point, he even tried to guilt-trip me, saying, "I thought you loved me. I thought we were building something together." Mila came over during all of this, probably expecting another cozy evening with her man. Instead, she got to witness Finn packing his things while I stood there, arms crossed, reminding him not to forget his gaming chair. She looked so confused and kept asking, "Wait, this isn't your house?" Finn didn't even try to answer her. By the end of the day, Finn was gone. Mila was gone. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down on the couch Finn had wanted to replace, and thought about how close I'd come to losing everything because I was too generous with my time, my money, and my patience. Never again. Oh, and in case anyone's wondering, Finn is now couch surfing with friends. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Mila dumped him too when she realized he was unemployed, broke, and basically homeless. Karma's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Second update. I thought that was the end of it, but apparently Finn wasn't done embarrassing himself yet. A few days after Finn left, I got a call from our mutual friend Caleb who wanted to check in. I could tell from his voice that he was fishing for something, so I asked him outright, "Did Finn send you?" Caleb hesitated but eventually spilled the beans. Turns out Finn had been planning this breakup for months. He'd been telling everyone, friends, acquaintances, even his family, that he was about to take over the house and start a new chapter. He painted himself as the long-suffering boyfriend who had put up with my nagging for years. According to him, the house was basically his because of all the work he'd put into making it a home. I had to pause Caleb there because I nearly choked laughing. What work? The man barely did his own laundry, let alone anything to maintain the house. I asked Caleb if Finn ever mentioned the small detail about the house being in my name. He said you'd probably just leave when he asked, and if you didn't, he'd figure it out. Oh, Finn. Sweet, delusional Finn. Apparently, Finn was so confident that I'd roll over and give him the house that he threw himself a little victory lap before the breakup. He told people he was finally free to focus on his life, and even made plans to host a housewarming party. Again, in my house. The audacity. Caleb also told me something that really pissed me off. Finn had been downplaying everything I did for him. He told people I was barely paying the bills, and that he was the one holding it all together. This was the guy who didn't even know how much the mortgage was every month. The lies were just so bold and bizarre that I couldn't help but laugh. I thanked Caleb for the info and started thinking about how I could wrap this up in a way that Finn would never forget. At first, I thought about just letting it go. Finn was gone, the house was mine, and I could finally move on. But then I remembered all the crap he put me through. Years of emotional manipulation, financial freeloading, and now this ridiculous smear campaign. No, I wasn't going to let it slide. I decided to hit Finn where it hurt most, his ego. First, I sent a polite but firm group message to our mutual friends clarifying a few things. The house was in my name, 100%. Finn never paid a dime toward the mortgage or bills. Any claims that he built our life together were outright lies. I kept it factual and unemotional. but I made sure to include screenshots of our old lease agreements and utility bills with my name on them. Even included a photo of the deed with only my name. I wasn't about to let him twist the narrative. Second, I reached out to a local charity that helps people furnish their homes. I donated all of Finn's leftover junk, his old desk, a couch he never sat on, and even the gaming chair he left behind in his rush to leave. They were thrilled to take it, and I was thrilled to see it go. Lastly, I decided to let Finn's parents know what had really been going on. They'd always been kind to me, and I felt like they deserved to know the truth. I didn't go into every detail, but I told them enough to make it clear that Finn's victim narrative was a complete fabrication. The group message blew up almost immediately. Most people were shocked but supportive, saying they had no idea Finn was spinning such a ridiculous story. A few of his closer friends tried to defend him, saying he was going through a lot, but I shut that down quickly. We all go through things, I said, but that doesn't give you the right to lie and steal. Finn, of course, found out about the message and called me furious. He accused me of ruining his life and said I had no right to air our dirty laundry. I told him calmly that he'd been doing that himself for months. I just corrected the record. Then I hung up and blocked him. As for his parents, they were horrified. They apologized profusely and said they had no idea Finn had been treating me so poorly. His mom even offered to pay me back for some of the bills he racked up, but I declined. I wasn't interested in money. I just wanted them to know the truth. The real cherry on top came a few weeks later when I ran into Mila at a coffee shop. She approached me, clearly embarrassed, and apologized for getting involved. She said Finn had lied to her about everything, including how the house situation was mutual. Then she told me the funniest thing I've heard all year. Finn was living in his car. Apparently, none of his friends wanted to take him in after learning the truth, and his parents weren't interested in bailing him out either. He'd burned too many bridges, and now he was reaping the consequences. I don't wish homelessness on anyone, but in this case, I can't say I feel too bad. He made his bed, or in this case, his back seat, and now he has to lie in it. Third update. So remember how I mentioned Finn wasn't done trying to get his house back? Well, grab your popcorn because this story just got even more ridiculous. Last week, I was having lunch with my sister Nora when she started acting weird. She kept checking her phone and giving me these strange looks, like she wanted to tell me something but couldn't figure out how. Finally, I just asked her what was up. "Don't be mad," she started, which is never a good sign. "But Finn reached out to me last week." I nearly spat out my drink. What? Turns out, Finn has been going around telling everyone who'll listen that we had some sort of verbal agreement about the house. According to him, we were practically married. We weren't. And he'd contributed significantly to the household. He hadn't. But here's the real kicker. He asked Nora for money, not just a little money either. He wanted enough to get back on his feet and fight for what's rightfully his. And she gave it to him. Before you grab your pitchforks, let me explain. Nora and I have always been close, and she's usually the smartest person I know. But Finn apparently fed her this sob story about how he'd invested everything in our relationship and was now homeless because of me. He even showed her screenshots of some bills he'd paid years ago, conveniently leaving out the fact that he'd paid them with my money. I felt bad for him, Nora admitted, looking guilty. He was living in his car, and he seemed so sure about everything. He said he just needed enough to get started again. I sat there trying to process this betrayal. "How much did you give him?" $2,000, she mumbled into her coffee. $2,000. I was about to lose it, but then Nora pulled out her phone and showed me their text conversation. As I read through it, I realized something. My sister might be smarter than I thought. See, Nora hadn't just given him the money. She'd made him sign a proper IOU, complete with repayment terms and interest. She'd even gotten him to put his car up as collateral. When I asked her why she went to all that trouble for a small loan, she just smiled. "Because I knew he was full of it," she said. "I wanted proof of exactly how desperate he was getting. Plus, I figured having a document showing he had to borrow money might come in handy later." I could have hugged her right then. But the story gets better. Remember Caleb? Our mutual friend who spilled the beans about Finn's pre-breakup plotting? Well, he sent me screenshots of Finn's social media posts where he's been painting himself as this victim of a calculated gold digger who trapped him in a relationship just to steal his future earnings. Yes, you read that right. He thinks I spent 6 years supporting his unemployed self because I was after his future money. The money he was definitely going to make from all those failed projects I funded. The posts are full of vague accusations about how I manipulated him and took advantage of his trusting nature. According to Finn's new version of events, he was the one who supported me emotionally while I was unstable and unable to maintain healthy relationships. This from the man who once had a 3-hour meltdown because I bought the wrong brand of energy drink. But here's where it gets really interesting. My friend Zoe has been keeping track of everyone Finn's reached out to, and apparently he's been telling different stories to different people. To some, he's the victim of a manipulative ex. To others, he's a generous partner who gave up everything for me. And to a few, he's even claiming we had some sort of business partnership that I betrayed. The stories keep getting more elaborate too. Last week, he told someone I had promised to put his name on the deed as a birthday gift, but then changed my mind out of spite. Pretty creative for someone who once forgot my birthday entirely because he was too busy trying to become a Twitch streamer. Yesterday, I got a series of increasingly unhinged messages from him about how he's going to expose me to everyone we know. He's threatening to tell people about all my secrets. Though I'm really curious what secrets he thinks he has, considering I'm the one who knows about his failed cryptocurrency investments, and that time he tried to become a professional dog photographer with my camera. I haven't responded to any of his messages, but I did save them all. Something tells me this isn't over yet. Finn's never been good at accepting reality, and now that he's burned through Nora's money, probably on another get-rich-quick scheme, I'm sure he's cooking up some new plan to try to get what he thinks he deserves. Last update. So last Sunday, I was doing my weekly grocery shopping when I literally ran into Finn's mom at the store. I tried to just smile and walk past, but she grabbed my cart and said, "We need to talk." Now, his mom has always been sweet to me, even after everything that happened, but this time she looked different. Worried, but also kind of angry. She asked if we could get coffee, and something in her voice made me agree. Once we sat down, she took a deep breath and said, "I need to tell you what Finn's been up to, because this has gone too far." Turns out, Finn showed up at his parents' house last week with this elaborate story about how he was getting the house back. According to him, he had evidence that I had somehow tricked him into putting all the bills in my name. He even claimed he had proof that he'd given me cash for the down payment. His mom stopped him right there and reminded him that she and his dad had been there when I bought the house, before Finn even moved in. But Finn just talked over her, going on about how he was building a case and needed to borrow some money to set things right. When his parents refused to give him money, he completely lost it. Started throwing around accusations about how they never supported his dreams and were choosing my side over their own son. His mom looked so tired as she told me this. "He's not the boy I raised," she said. "I don't know what happened to him." But here's where it gets really interesting. She started telling me about all these things Finn had done that I never knew about, like how he'd been telling his younger sister that he bought me out of the house months ago, and that's why he needed to borrow money from her, to renovate his property. His sister, being 19 and trusting her big brother, gave him her savings. Or how he'd been going around to all their relatives telling different versions of the story to whoever would listen. To some, he claimed we were secretly married. To others, he said I had promised him the house in exchange for sweat equity. His words, not mine. He even told his grandmother that I was holding his gaming equipment hostage, the same equipment I donated to charity months ago. His mom pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots of a GoFundMe page he'd made. The title, "Help Local Man Reclaim His Home from Manipulative Ex." I almost choked on my coffee. The page was full of completely made-up stories about how he'd invested his life savings into the house, what savings, and how I had manipulated the paperwork to cut him out. He even posted pictures of my house, claiming he'd done all these renovations himself. The only renovation Finn ever did was rearranging the furniture when he was procrastinating on job applications. But the craziest part? People were actually donating. Not a lot, but enough that Finn thought his plan was working. He'd raised about $800 before his mom reported the page and got it taken down. "I had to do something," she said. "He needs to face reality." She told me Finn had been sleeping in his car in their driveway for the past week, refusing to come inside unless they supported his cause. Every morning, he'd leave claiming he had meetings about getting the house back. Every evening, he'd return with some new story about his progress. His mom had finally had enough when she overheard him on the phone trying to convince Mila, remember her, to be a character witness about how the house was really his. Mila, to her credit, had apparently laughed and hung up on him. "I'm not telling you this to get sympathy for him," his mom said. "I'm telling you because I want you to be prepared. He's not going to stop until he has no choice." She then did something that surprised me. She handed me a small photo album. Inside were pictures of Finn from the past few years. Pictures of him at family events, holidays, casual moments. In every single one, he was on his phone or laptop, supposedly working on his next big thing, while everyone else was actually living their lives. "I should have seen it sooner," she said. "How he used people. How he always had an angle. I enabled him for too long, and I'm sorry you got caught up in it." I tried to give the album back, but she shook her head. "Keep it. Maybe someday he'll want to see the person he used to be. But for now, I need to do what I should have done years ago." She told me she and Finn's dad had made a decision. They're changing their locks and cutting off his access to their Wi-Fi. No more sleeping in their driveway. No more enabling his delusions. They've arranged for him to stay with his uncle in another state, who's offered him a real job. No computers, no schemes, just honest work. He either takes the offer and gets his life together, or he figures it out on his own. But we're done watching him try to tear down other people's lives because he refuses to build his own. As we were leaving, she hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for showing him there are consequences. I just wish he'd learn from them." I watched her walk away and felt this weird mix of emotions. Relief that his own family finally sees him for who he is, sadness for the person he could have been.